If you have been craving fresh platformers on Switch and Switch 2, this list is for you. I grew up on Mario, Donkey Kong, and anything that let me chase that perfect jump. So I am always hunting for new stuff that feels good in the hands, not just pretty in trailers. These are 10 newer platformers you can actually boot up right now, with a mix of big-name releases and smaller games that surprise me. Let's get into it. Donkey Kong Bananza is the kind of game that reminds me why I still love chunky, physical platformers. The big hook is how much of the world you can mess with. You are not just hopping over obstacles, you are smashing through them, ripping stuff out, and using the environment like a toy box. On Switch 2, it feels smooth, and the levels are built to reward curiosity, not just speed. I like that it mixes classic Donkey Kong vibes with modern movement options, so you are constantly swapping between brute force and smart platforming. It also has those little surprise moments, like suddenly hitting a different style section and your brain has to reset. It launched July 17th, 2025, and it still feels like the system's big platforming flex. I never thought I would see both Galaxy games bundled on Switch in a clean, modern way, but here we are. These are still some of the most creative Mario games ever, because gravity changes everything. One minute you're running around a tiny planetoid, the next you're flipping upside down and your sense of direction is gone, in the best way. The level design is basically a greatest hits album of Nintendo ideas, and it stays fun even if you have played them before. Galaxy 2 especially is packed with challenge stages that feel like pure platforming tests, no filler. The updated version on Switch launched October 2nd, 2025, and it is one of those releases that instantly becomes a comfort game for me. Silksong was worth the wait. If you liked Hollow Knight, this feels faster and sharper. Like the game is pushing you to stay aggressive while still respecting how dangerous everything is. Hornet's movement has this acrobatic flow, so platforming and combat blend together instead of feeling like separate modes. I also love how exploration works here because you keep finding little routes that only make sense once you unlock a new tool. The world has that same moody vibe, but it does not feel like a copy of the first game. It has its own identity, especially in the enemies and the way encounters are staged. It released September 4th, 2025 on Switch and Switch 2, and it is an easy pick if you want a tough, satisfying platformer you can sink into. Shadow Labyrinth is the weirdest Pac-Man related thing I have played, and I mean that as a compliment. It is a darker action platformer with exploration, upgrades, and that whole I wonder what is behind that door feeling. The vibe is more sci-fi and creepy than cute, but it works because the movement is responsive, and the world is built like a maze you slowly learn. What really hooked me is how it changes pace. Sometimes you are doing tight combat platforming, other times you are moving in sequences that feel like a twisted nod to classic arcade design. If you enjoy Metroidvania-style progression, this one scratches that itch without feeling like a clone. It hit Switch and Switch 2 on July 18th, 2025, and it is still a fun left-field pick. This is a slick, hand-drawn action platformer that makes me want to replay stages just to clean up my movement. You play as Joe Musashi, and the whole game is built around feeling like a ninja, quick strikes, smart positioning, and that in-and-out rhythm. The art style pops in motion, like a Saturday morning cartoon that decided to get serious. What I appreciate is that it is not only combat, there are platforming routes, secrets, and little timing challenges that make it feel like a full package instead of a straight brawler. It also nails that classic arcade energy where you always feel one mistake away from getting punished, but you learn fast. It launched August 29th, 2025 on Switch, and it is a great palate cleanser between bigger adventures.
You just sealed your fate!
The Bee Hive is pure charm, but it is not a baby game. You play as a little bee hero, and the levels have that old-school collectathon feel with bright worlds, playful enemies, and lots of reasons to poke around. The best part is that it feels handcrafted, like someone obsessed over making every area feel distinct. Movement is simple to learn, but it gives you enough control to do little precision jumps and quick turns without fighting the camera. I also like how it breaks up the pace with different objectives, so you are not just collecting the same thing forever. It released November 27th, 2025 on Switch, and it is an easy recommendation if you miss that classic era of colorful 3D platformers but still want something new. Hop and Marty feels like a love letter to that retro 3D platformer era, but it does not try to be huge. It is more like a tight weekend game where you bounce through themed worlds, grab collectibles, and enjoy the silly surprises. What sold me is the variety. One area feels like a playful adventure, then the next suddenly leans into a spooky vibe, and it keeps you guessing. The platforming is straightforward, but the game rewards you for exploring corners and doing little challenge routes, instead of just running to the exit. It also has that indie weirdness in the characters you meet, which I always appreciate. It released August 15th, 2025 on Switch, and it is a solid pick when you want something light that still feels like real platforming. Demonspire is for the days when you want your platformer to bite back. It is a dark fantasy action platformer about climbing a cursed tower, and the whole thing has that tense, forward-pushing feeling. You are constantly weighing risk, like, do I go for the extra reward or play it safe and survive this section? The combat is punchy, but the platforming is what makes it stressful in a good way, with traps, tight ledges, and enemy placement that forces you to stay alert. I also like the simple premise, climb, fight, endure, because it keeps the pacing focused. It released December 18th, 2025 on Switch, and it is a fun pick if you like platformers that feel a little mean, but still fair once you learn the patterns. This collection is like grabbing a bag of snacks instead of one big meal, and that is exactly why I enjoy it. You get multiple small 3D platformers with different ideas, and they are built for quick sessions where you can chase fast time, just chill and collect. The movement is snappy and simple, so you are not spending hours learning systems. You are just jumping, dashing, and flowing through compact levels that respect your time. It also has that playful, slightly weird tone that makes indie platformers feel personal. If you grew up replaying short stages to do them cleaner and faster, this hits that same part of the brain. It launched January 30th, 2026 on Switch, and it is a great between big games pickup. Cloudberry Kingdom is chaos in the best way, especially if you like platformers that keep generating new challenges. The levels are built to test different movement styles, so one run might be about tight jumps, and the next is jetpacks, speed boosts, or weird physics that makes you rethink everything. It can get brutally hard, but it is the kind of hard where you laugh at your own failure and hit retry immediately. The big reason I still like it is that it feels endless, because you are not just memorizing one stage, you're adapting on the fly. It finally landed on Nintendo Switch on February 2nd, 2026. So it counts as a fresh option for Switch players right now. If you want a platformer you can always come back to, this one works. Alright, that's my list of 10 newer platformers you can jump into right now on Switch and Switch 2. If you want pure Nintendo magic, the Galaxy Bundle is still unreal. If you want something tougher, Silksong and Demonspire will keep you busy. And if you want smaller hidden gems, the Bee Hive and Toree's collection are easy to recommend. Drop your own favorite new platformer in the comments because I am always looking for the next one that feels amazing to play.